Hello and welcome to the Achieve Today podcast. My name is Jake Mix, and today we have a special guest, someone who has been with us for 18 years now, Mr. Gil McKiff. He's been a coach here, and Gil has an extraordinary ability to go deep into topics such as mindfulness and limiting beliefs. I've had some great conversations with them. So Gil, thank you so much for coming down and making the time for this.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me in.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, and so, we were talking a little bit about what we were going to, like kind of the topic that we wanted to do, what would be relevant to our students, but then also anyone who's interested in Achieve Today. Mm-hmm. And this topic of meditation came to mind. Mm-hmm. And so I'd love to dive deep with this, kind of get the origin of meditation, your ideas and your thoughts about it, but then maybe some implementation, some ways that people can get meditating or get started or improve their meditation.
Yeah.
So to get started, let's talk a little bit about your definition of meditation, because I feel like it's probably different than most. So what are your thoughts about that? Just give me your ideas.
Yeah, we're going to jump down the rabbit hole.
That's okay, as long as I can stop you.
Yes, please.
When I'm confused. Okay.
Please do. Yeah, and when I'm coaching with a client, I tell them right off the bat, look, I talk a lot, so feel free to interrupt anytime. Okay. And I do tend to go deep. So yeah, when we talk about meditation, if you're asking me what my perspective is towards meditation, it's a practice by which we're giving ourselves an opportunity to have direct perception of the source of creation. Right. So when I say direct perception is right now, visually, I have direct perception of you. Right now, you don't have any cologne on or foul odor, so positive smell or negative smell. So I don't smell you, I visually see you, but I have direct perception, and it's coming through the visual faculty. You can't visually see the source of creation, but you can see creation. Right, so you can see the plants and the atmosphere, or not the atmosphere, but the stars, the planets, the galaxy, the solar system. You can see things, but what is it that animates things? And we would call it its source. So for a person, we would say that might be either consciousness or awareness or soul or spirit. I was just talking with a client earlier today. She says, I call it universe. I said, so the way you refer to yourself as the universe? She said, well, as a piece of the universe. Okay, so what's the difference between the whole and the part? Do they have different names? And she said, well, self. Okay, so the whole is the universe and the part is the self. So that's the fifth most common word. Consciousness, awareness, soul, spirit, self with a capital S, authentic nature. So to have direct perception of that, you can't see it, you can't hear it, smell it, taste it, or touch it. So you can't confirm it with your senses. But what can you confirm it with? And that's the only thing that's left, and that is awareness itself. I'm aware of awareness. I'm aware of it. So if you close your eyes and imagine the top of your house, looking down at the top of your house, you can imagine that, no problem. And if you imagine the roof came off and you were seeing all the stuff in your house, you can imagine that, no problem. And then if the house disappeared and you had this plot of land, no problem, you can imagine that. And you can even say, I am aware of that. Right? I'm aware of the plot of land. And then the whole earth disappears. You're floating in space. I am aware of space. Right? I'm aware of those stars. And let's say all the stars went out and it was just blackness and empty space. You could say, I'm aware of the blackness of empty space. No problem. But what you can't do is take awareness away. Right? That's without the awareness, what is? You can't conceive of it. So when you take that awareness that you are, that can perceive things with the senses, but also with awareness itself, direct perception, and turn it in on itself and have awareness watching awareness, it's been said in many circles, this is the fastest way to the ultimate truth. Is awareness watching awareness. So meditation is a practice by which you give yourself the opportunity to have that experience, because it's just not very likely you're going to have that experience when you're in your day-to-day busy stuff, right? When you're engaged in sensory experience, seeing things, doing things, having things, getting things, wanting things, living your life, your relationships, your responsibilities, all this busyness is keeping you your attention fixed on the world. And so when you go into your meditative experience, it's to kind of go behind the world, right? In Christianity, there's the phrase, I am in this world, but not of it. Mm-hmm. That's the truth of the soul that you are. You are in this world, but not of it. You are in this body, but not of this body. So to have that experience, that's what I think of as meditation. So direct perception of the source, direct perception of God, to know God, it's in that arena. That's what I think about. That's my point of view with it.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense, and actually makes it a little simpler to grasp, I believe. Now, from what I've understood, meditation, especially in the States, has gotten pretty big, and from what I see it's now I might be looking at it wrong, but it seemed like a temporary fix for some of this anxiety and stress that you're feeling every day. But you're saying it's a real way to connect to a higher power, to connect to the creativity. Like, how does someone? First off, what are some of the things that you're seeing maybe in the States as far as meditation that they're getting wrong? Maybe wrong's not the right response.
What are they missing?
Yeah, what are they missing? Yeah. What are they missing?
People tend to use meditation as a means to get somewhere.
Yeah, that's exactly what I felt. Yeah.
To get something, to improve their health, and there's meditations for these practices, which there's all kinds of different types of meditations, right? You could have a guided meditation, you could have a mantra meditation. The Transcendental Meditation movement, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, in the 50s and 60s was teaching TM, and TM got really big, and essentially it was a mantra meditation where you were given the specific sound to repeat as a way to catalyze your own awakening from the mind, body, ego into, the truth.
Would that mantra be personal, or would it be kind of
It would be personal.
Okay.
Yeah, so those that receive a mantra from a guru are advised not to share it with anybody.
Oh, okay, so very personal.
Very
private.
Personal. Yeah. It's kind of like in some religions you have an alternative name and you don't share that name.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's some things that are just that sacred, and it's not that it's needs to be private. It's just it needs to be protected. Like Lord of the Rings, keep it secret, keep it safe. What is it? The greatest power that anybody knows of, right? Keep it secret, keep it safe.
Yeah.
So don't cast the pearls before the orcs, right?
Yeah, I love that. Great analogy.
But yeah, people tend to use the power that's accessed in meditation for an egoic means, meaning something that I desire, something that I want, and that usually is towards greater pleasure and less pain. All right, so using it to get what I want. So the question is, who's the one meditating? All right, who's the one meditating? If it's the ego meditating, it's for an egoic reason. Even if it's a philanthropic egoic reason, I want to be known for helping all these people. All right, I feel good only when I'm helping people. I don't feel good when I'm helping people. That's egoic, right? And egoic doesn't necessarily, mean exclusively self-serving and selfish. Right? Because a lot of people have egoic serving of other people, meaning, again, they don't feel good unless they're helping other people. But are they doing it to help other people, or are they doing it to feel good? Right? So it's on the line. But better health, improve my finances, there's a guided meditation for everything. And the top of the ladder with meditation is, but who's the one doing it? And so that's realizing that I am not separate from the source. So if I'm not separate from the source of creation, then the source of me, my source, is the source of creation. Maybe not in whole, but Rumi said, you're not a drop in the ocean. You're the entire ocean in a drop. So if we look at the soul is spirit reflected in the mind-body. So it's an individuated piece of the source. An individuated piece of the source, like the sunbeam is the sun. It's just an individuated piece, right? What is its source? It's the sun. Is the sunbeam the sun? Ultimately, yes. So what if the sunbeam remembers its source as the sun? Now it takes that power with it, right? And those that have done that, remembered the source, we call that enlightenment. Right? And the words Jesus gave to it were, I and the Father are one, or I am He is the final stage. in the Vedic tradition or the Hindu tradition, you have in the yogic tradition, you have Nirvikalpa and Savikalpa Samadhi, which is the 8th limb of yoga. By the way, meditation is the 7th limb of yoga. There's 8 limbs, and the final limb is what Jesus said, I and the Father are one. Samadhi, you are in that state. You know. You've merged the individuated separate self back into the authentic self, or you've let go of the separate self and realized and awoken to the truth that you have never been separate and that you are that. And in that state, it's an enlightened state. And this is like mastery over forces of nature, right? And the ego says, I want to get that. Right?
Yeah.
I want to have mastery over the forces of nature.
Yeah. Now, so I lost you there. The seventh, you said 7th limb or 8th limb?
Yes, the 8th
Can you
limb.
explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, there's 8 limbs of yoga, and yoga
Okay.
is a science, not a religion, and it's a science of reunifying the ego back into the soul, and then
Okay.
reunifying the soul back into its source, which you could call either spirit or God.
Okay.
So it's a science of how to know God, a science, right? Meaning it's got a methodology that if you practice it accurately, you should expect results. Right, so you do these things, you will get these results. A scientific method.
That's proven, yeah.
And in yoga, there's 4 major branches of yoga, 4 different kinds of yoga. There's Jnana yoga, which is a path of wisdom, and that path is really called the direct path. It's instead of progressively getting there, it's what am I? Right? Let's just go straight to the source right now. What am I? What am I? What am I? And behind that, what am I? And cultivating the realization. That's Jnana yoga. And then there's Raja yoga, which is royal. Royal yoga, it's the type of yoga that, in my understanding, I'm not the expert on this stuff, this is my understanding, is Raja yoga was the type of yoga that was taught to royalty. Right? So if you're, let's say, a king, but you're not a spiritual guru, and so who do you bring into your court? The wisest man in the land, right? And you want to know what they know to the best of your ability. That man's job is to teach you, or that woman's job, and I think most cases it was men, that man's job was to teach royalty how to know the truth, right? The ultimate truth. So it had to be a reliable system, and this is where we get Patanjali's 8 limbs of yoga. So these 8 limbs of yoga, and so we won't go into the other 2, it's karma yoga and what's the other one? It's the devotion, bhakti yoga. So bhakti is praise and devotion. Karma yoga is yoga of action, or yoga of bringing God into everything you do, essentially. What goes around comes around. Karma, right? Karma yoga. So this 8 limbs of yoga, in royal yoga, this is your systematic means of realizing the truth. And again, meditation is the 7th limb. So this is... let's just go through them. Meditation is the 7th. There's 8 limbs. The first 2 limbs are yamas and niyamas. These are like your 10 commandments in the Vedic tradition. So don't do these things, do these things. So those first 2 limbs, yamas and niyamas, are taking ownership over your mind. Buddha said...
Now, sorry, is this under the structure of the yoga? Because you said there's four different types of yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And you went into the first 2.
Jnana and Raja.
Raja. So is this under Raja?
This is under Raja, yeah.
Okay, and then there's 8 limbs.
Yes, in
Okay,
Raja.
cool. I just
Good.
wanted some context there. Okay.
Thank you. It's easy to get lost in there.
Yeah, it's tough.
And again, I'm not the expert on the subject. I'm passionate about the subject. And
Sure.
so I'm sharing to the best of my understanding. So those of you that know more about this, you can see where I'm on track and where I'm kind of getting a little distracted. But not claiming authority on the subject, but elaborating it to the best of my understanding.
Yeah.
Within this Raja Yoga is the science of how to realize the ultimate truth. How to know.
Things you can do, or things that's under that structure.
A progressive path.
I love it.
Do
Okay.
these things, then you can go to these things and these things. So the first 2 limbs are taking ownership over your mind.
Okay.
And that's so much of what we do here, right? Finding and clearing limiting beliefs. Acting as if, creative visualization, right? Feeding what you want from the inside out, vibrational alignment.
Yep.
This is getting your mind right. So when we get our mind right, that's not going to distract us. Like if you harm somebody and you know it, there's an element inside of you of guilt or maybe even shame because you've done something that's harmed somebody else. So the penalty is not a punishment from God. It's the sin itself is in the experience. So it's not, because you did that, now here's your penalty. It's if you do this, you're going to have some residual stuff going on in your mind called resentment, regret, judgment, blame, shame, guilt, regret, humiliation, whatever, negative emotion. And that's going to interfere with you realizing the truth. So take ownership over the mind. Do these things, don't do these things with the mind. Mental adherence, mental restraint with the yamas and niyamas. Then we get the asanas, what most people think of with yoga, right? The body postures. And this is taking ownership over your body. If you're going to meditate for a lengthy amount of time, most people are going to get at some point distracted by, oh my gosh, my knee or my back, right?
Yeah.
So that's where soul consciousness is drawn back into the body. It's a distraction from going to the source. So we want to get the body to the place where it can be still for a lengthy amount of time. And this is also getting you over, it's getting you over, it's pacifying laziness or slothfulness. Right? So it's getting that out of the way. I'm taking ownership over the body. It's my body. I'm getting into this. And the benefit of that, again, is I can have a quiet body for a lengthy amount of time in a meditation, but it's also opening up the channels in the body that allow this electric energy, well, I don't even know if it's electric, it's spiritual energy that flows through your system. And if there's a kink in the hose, the water can't flow very well. So with the body systems, it's the right geometries in the body, the right flow in the body that can sustain the current that's going to be opened up when you get all the way to the end. If there's a problem there, it's going to prevent you from getting all the way to the end. Right? It's going to slow you down. So taking ownership over the mind, taking ownership over the body. That's the first three, yamas, niyamas, and then asanas. Then there's what's known as pranayama, and that's taking ownership over the life force energy. Okay. So sometimes known as prana, sometimes known as chi, sometimes known as vital force, this source energy in the body, taking ownership over that. It can be done with breathing practices. So every guided meditation you've ever heard has always started with, let's go ahead and take a deep breath, right? Or if we wanted to change the quality of our consciousness, we could breathe this way or that way, but you can access different states of consciousness with the breath, and what you're doing is manipulating this vital energy in the body. So when you take ownership over that, there's a science to that, what to do with that. But the next step is now internalizing your senses. It's called pratyahara. So internalizing your senses is, again, Christianity, the kingdom of heaven is within. What if you could see it? That would be a big benefit, right? Mm-hmm. What if you could close your eyes and actually see it? Or what if you could actually hear it, right? You'd know you're close, right? Yeah. So pratyahara is learning to reverse the current of your nervous system from registering the outside to now register the inside when you starting to go into the source, and you can actually hear the source. And it has 7 different sounds that, we've heard of the Om, right? The Om is the one sound. In the beginning was the word. The total range of vibration from the back of your throat to the tip of your lips. Om. So it's all sound, all creation. It's all possibilities, and all letters and all vowels and all words can come from these sounds, and it's the total range all in one word. So we can hear that source, that sound. In science, in physics, we have the cosmic background radiation, right? The sound of the Big Bang. It's like that spiritually, the source, the sound of the source. And if you're spiritual or religious, you would say it's the sound of God. What if you could actually hear, if you believe in God, what if you could hear God's voice? How would that feel? That's what happens when you start internalizing your senses. You start to see, you start to hear. And everybody's closed their eyes and seen things before. That's what a dream is, right?
Yeah.
And that's what creative visualization is. Close your eyes and imagine. Yeah. I can see. Or put your fingers up to your eyes and give a slight pressure with your eyes closed, and now all of a sudden, I see some blue, blotchy color, and it's starting to change and morph into like whatever. You can see with your eyes closed. So if you can practice and cultivate a science of this, which is taught in this science of pratyahara, learn how to see inward, learn how to hear inward. And again, you've already taken ownership over the mind and the body and the life force energy. Now you're going inward. Then the 6th step is called dharana. And dharana is where we have guided meditations. Dharana is concentration. Single pointed attention on one thing. So if I have you in a guided meditation and I say, now bring your awareness into your heart. right? Your attention is now going to your heart. It's going on to one thing, what I'm guiding you to. And this is what guided meditation is directing your attention from place to place to place to place, but with all of that energy that you've freed up from all of the distractions of the mind and the body, all of that freed up energy and this single pointed attention now as a skill, you're now focusing in on the source. And this comes meditation, seventh step. All of your focus is on the source inward. Right? Going in towards the kingdom of heaven, within, towards the soul, towards the consciousness. What is that? What is this I that I am? What is this awareness that I am? Observing it, awareness in a trained process that's been refined for 5,000 years at least. Right? This is a science.
Yeah.
And it's so huge, but it's so mind-blowing that most people are going to say, I don't have time for that. Right? Unless they really recognize the potential of what's there. And if anybody realizes the potential of what's in the meditative path or the yogic path, they'll realize it's not a contradiction to any religion. It's a complement. So you can cultivate this path while staying with your own religion, with your own belief system. But what you're doing is moving beyond the mind of belief, and you're moving into the direct perception of awareness or soul. And so once you recognize the source of the soul, again, now you're not separate. Again, the sunbeam's not separate from the sun. What if the sunbeam looks back down the channel towards the sun and sees the core of the sun while it is the sunbeam and recognizes, I am that? Right now, where does the center of awareness go? It doesn't go from here, I'm individual and separate. It goes back to the source, I am the source. And that's what samadhi is, the 8th step. So this is a science, a royal science, and 7th is meditation. I don't know what your original question was.
That was amazing.
But yeah, that's...
Well, and it gave a lot more context. You know, actually, you explaining that gave a lot of understanding.
Cool.
And now I do have some questions with it, though, because, you know, you say it's this journey, and it sounds like you got to put in quite a bit of work to even get to that true meditative state where you're connecting with the source. So, like, how does one do that? Does it take years of practice, or, you know, like, what's the process that you have to go through to get to that state?
The path of bhakti, the path of karma yoga, bhakti yoga, karma yoga, and raja yoga, these are all, from my understanding, known as progressive paths. So I have to do these things to get better, to have these experiences, and I can get there and get better at it and get there and get better at it. The jnana yoga, the path of wisdom, is I can get there now. And the only thing that prevents me from getting there now is my belief that that's not realistic, right? So the mind, the identified state. We could say, traditions would say, well, your past karma, these are your attachments and your aversions, what you want and don't want, your desires, your unfulfilled desires create this agitated mind, this busy mind. You can't get there with a busy mind. Well, whose mind is it? What am I? That's my mind. That's my busy mind. So the direct path is really appealing for a lot of people, but they say, those in the advanced circles of the direct path say, you get there faster, and then you can go and address all that other stuff. But you're still going to have to address it,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But for me, it's really attractive to me because it makes sense that I am soul spirit, and if I know that, then I'm awakened, enlightened. And it's not an agenda for me. It's just logic to me that that's what it is. And we should all know. I mean, is it more miraculous to think that you could remember God or that you could forget God if you believe in God? Isn't it miraculous to consider that you are a piece of God and you forgot?
Yeah.
How could that possibly happen? Right? But if you are, again, spiritual religious, you believe in God, it doesn't seem like it's too much of a stretch to consider you could remember that.
Yeah.
Right? Anybody who says, I have a soul, should be able to do this, right? Because you don't have a soul. You are the soul. You should be able to remember that. You should be able to have direct perception of that. And so the progressive path is, what we are as an organization is in between those two paths. Right? Because we're cultivating this type of a dialogue, I am at least, with the clients, but at the same time saying, well, here's what we need to do to start cleaning up along the way. This program is not teaching you how to transcend your ego and how to cultivate enlightenment, yet we talk about the 3-step process that I wrote, module 1, is for the purpose of transcending ego, right? It's a catalyst to awakening, but it's module 1. We need to address cause. And now also in module 1 is this, and we have 2, 3, 4, 5, and the rest of the curriculum, right? Where most of that is how do you get your mind right? How do you clear those limiting beliefs that are in the way? So meditation being step 7 of 8, a lot of people want to start there.
Yeah.
And they can, right? Because it's all over YouTube. Right? But what are they really doing? It's the ego that's still doing it. And the ego is, again, the two distinctions of ego, the primary hallmark characteristics of ego are identifying with and clinging to pleasure. We call it attachment. And so your cocky, arrogant person is just really inflated in that direction. All right. Look at me. Look what I've done. Look what I've got. All these good things like my new truck, my new job, my new house, my whatever. Look at me. Look at me. Identifying with and clinging to pleasure. And if they don't have enough of it now, they go to the past. You know how many touchdowns I threw in high school, right? That kind of stuff. The other one is identifying with and clinging to pain. And this is where we have limiting beliefs, right? A limiting belief is born out of a painful experience, right? It could be a sad experience. It could have been a grief experience. It could have been an anger experience. But limiting beliefs are born out of these painful experiences. And so when I'm going to go work on that, I'm working on aversion itself. So attachment and aversion, identifying with and clinging to pleasure, identifying with and clinging to pain, this is the soul. So it's powering this story and sustaining this story and developing an identity out of this. This isn't me. Well, actually, it is me as an ego, but it's not the I, it's not the self. So when I step back and I look at that, I can change these things, right? I can get what I want. The biggest liability to getting from where I am to where I want to be is being more identified with where I am than where I want to be. And it's easy to be identified with where I am because this is real, right?
Yeah.
I know what's in my bank account. I know where I work. I know what's wrong with my car, whatever. So again, I digress. Tangents.
No, well, and it all makes sense from a very high level, at least, and I can see where it all comes together. Now, here's a question for you. Let's say someone's watching this, and they're seeing all this. They're trying to gather all this information. What do they do with this information, right? Do they go and do they start a practice of meditation, or would there be a precursor to that, like you've kind of been talking about?
Both is good. It's good to just jump in and get started because ultimately you have some internal guidance that's going to say, you know what, that's a bunch of BS.
Yeah.
This guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And this one, that's a bit frou-frou, it's a little bit out there for me. And so we might slowly find the one that we like. Right. And when we find the one that we like, it's much more powerful to make a habit out of meditating than to meditate for 2 hours once a week. Right, so if I have this daily habit, if I get into a substandard meditation that I purchased online, and it's good, I like it. It's worth it. I paid good money for it. It's worth it. I'm having this great experience.
Yeah.
Well, eventually I'm going to see that I've got an attachment to this experience, and I'm going to realize it's only taking me so far. Right? It's a nice experience. I like it. And now I have my meditation, right? I've been through this. I had my meditation, but I realized I didn't have what this guru has. And so I really like this guru. I really love and respect this guru. Oh my gosh, I've read about this guru and it's just mind-blowing, incredible. Wow. I want to do what he's doing, right? And so here's my ego learning about this meditation, and it seems really elementary to me. To my ego, it seems really elementary to my ego because I feel like I'm going backward to do this meditation. And I like my meditation. Well, I don't really need to do that meditation. I'm going to put that on the shelf for a while and I never go. And then at some point, you know what? I got to do it. And now it's this ego battle. Eventually what we're going to be doing is surrendering the mind-body ego, right? The attachments, the my way. That's a hallmark of ego. It's mine. If anybody says mine, that might as well be saying that's ego's. Right? My is possessive, ego is possessive. Because the soul consciousness that you are, it doesn't claim things, it is. Right? It doesn't need to add to, what do you need to add to love? What do you need to add to peace and joy? You're there, right?
Yeah.
You're fulfilled, free, and empowered, loving, peaceful, joyful as the soul right now, always have been and always will be. What do you want? Nothing. So the ego says, well, that sounds boring. But then if you really think about it, love, peace, joy, fulfillment, freedom, and empowerment. Is that boring? You're free to do whatever you choose to do, but you're not dependent on the outcome. So where can somebody begin? Start somewhere, but if you want to get a little bit of background, many people have heard about Deepak Chopra. He's been one of the biggest influential people of the 20th century in spirituality, top 100. And way back for me, he was a big influence for me. And not long ago, maybe 5 years ago or so, I discovered that in the Chopra Center, where they teach a lot of this kind of stuff, their handbook is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So Patanjali is credited as the author of these 8 limbs of yoga.
Okay.
And much like the Dread Pirate Roberts in Princess Bride, is it really the Dread Pirate Roberts, or did he assume the role from the previous, and did he assume the role from the previous? It's not really clear who Patanjali is.
Okay.
Is it a recurring character? Is it somebody who's taken the throne, taken the wisdom, or is it an actual individual? But he gave us these Yoga Sutras. And sutra means like suture, a thread, and yoga meaning union. So they're wisdom threads that tie us back to the truth, the Yoga Sutras. And there's the book that the Deepak, or that the Chopra Center uses, the specific translation of, I understand what they use, is the translation from Alastair Shearer. There's a lot of translations of this book. But I like this translation from Alastair Shearer because the first 89 pages of the book give you the context. Kind of like I'm trying to give you the context of the different paths of yoga and the significance of where meditation falls in. This Alastair Shearer gives a great context for all of this and then starts the Yoga Sutras. So that's a great book to get more understanding about the context, the content, the step-by-step methodology. But begin your meditative practice. It's wise to begin. If your meditation is less than 20 minutes, it's not much of a meditation. And a lot of people say, and that's okay. We'll just start with 10. That's fine. Yeah, that's true. Start. Get into the habit. But it's arguable if you can actually call it a meditation or not, less than 20 minutes. And so when we sit down to meditate, let's not expect to get anywhere. Right? If we're trying to get somewhere, we're thinking about it. And if we're thinking about it, then we're constantly evaluating, is it working? Is it working? Is it working? Am I not thinking so much? Am I thinking less now? Right? So don't worry about getting anywhere, right? Follow some qualified guidance. And in the beginning, it's very easy for people to learn meditation by following a guided meditation, a dharana, right? So you tell me. I'm going to just sit back and listen. All right, great. And I have a great experience. Wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a great way to begin. But it's wise to do it every day, and it's wise to do it first thing in the morning, and do it every single day at the same time of day, because like getting hungry at the same time of day roughly, and like getting tired at the same time of day roughly, you can entrain your system to expect this experience at the same time of day every day. So you start to get familiar with that space. You create the space for it. If you have the ability, it's wise to have that dedicated space in your house, right? So it becomes like sacred space in your house, and it starts to get populated with a feel, the quality of energy. Like if somebody walks into a temple of any religion, a temple that's dedicated space, many people claim, oh, you can feel the spirit when you walk into the temple. And whether it's a church or a temple or a holy place, you can set up that space in your house by dedicating a sacred space. If you can't, you can't. But if you can, cool. But same time of day every day, usually first thing in the morning is best. And shoot for at least 20 minutes. Don't expect to get anywhere, but follow qualified guidance. And if you don't have that, at least do a guided meditation to start getting into the habit. What a guided meditation is eventually going to do is teach you how to do it, right? So it's crutches. Eventually, you want to toss the crutches. You want to do this on your own. So guided meditation can lead you to the experiences that are available to you, but just don't get attached to the guide, right? Value and respect and appreciate the guide, but just don't get attached to the guide, because there's a lot of guides and your ego doesn't want you to go all the way, because if you go all the way, that's the end of ego. So the ego can't let you go all the way. In other words, the ego can't survive the trip to the truth. So that's why it's such a monumental task. You've heard me say it's the single greatest challenge anyone in history has ever faced.
Yeah.
Right? Transcending ego. So, yeah, practical steps, begin, drop your expectations. There's a lot of tips and advice that we'll give in our program. In our platform, we've got a lot of guided meditations in there. We do our weekly community calls. There's a lot in there. There's a spirituality mastermind in our program, about. I'll host that. And some people are just, free flowing with questions that are like this.
Yeah.
So we unpack that, go deeper, and give some step-by-step guidance of where you can begin, how to start, how to get the most out of it. And also, I personally make recommendations that we don't have within our organization. If you want to go to the top of the ladder, I'm not that. So here's what I'm familiar with. Check it out yourself. Here's where you could go.
I love that. Now, quick question with the 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Why, is there any reason behind why it's not effective?
Yeah.
It's less than 20 minutes?
It is effective. It's just weak.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a way to put it.
So what if you work out for 3 minutes every day?
Yeah.
I mean, it's effective, but as long as you're going to do it, you might as well do it. I mean, if you're doing a cardio workout for 3 minutes, just vigorous workout, and maybe it's straight push-ups for 3 minutes, right? You're going to get a great workout.
Right.
But that's a hard way to go, and it's all at once, right? Space it out, do it right, do it the right way. You're going to get a better result.
Yeah.
And 20 minutes shouldn't be too much to ask. All right, if you really can't do 20 minutes, then fine. Start with 10. Get into the habit. But even a seasoned meditator oftentimes will have a lot of distractions in the mind and body for the first 5 or 10, sometimes 15 minutes of their meditation. And a lot of people don't survive that stage. They just say, oh, it's not working, and they quit. But after a certain point where things start to settle and get relaxed, it might be 20 minutes in before it actually begins. And when it begins, it's a state that you really enjoy. There's a joy there.
Yeah.
And there's a deep peace there. Yogananda says that deep peace that you experience in your meditation is the soul. That's kind of cool. That's reassuring that I can have this direct confirmation of what I already believe, but now I can have direct confirmation with direct perception. Right? I'm experiencing it. I'm aware of the experience, and it is really peaceful. And so once you've tasted that, once you've had that in a lengthy amount of time, you'll have meditations where you don't want to come out after 45 minutes to an hour. And now you see my limits. I don't think I've ever meditated for 2 hours straight, right? So I'm still a novice.
Yeah.
Right. And most of us are, right? There's the experts in the world, and the masses, the 99.9% of the rest of the population, still novices. But yeah, you get to these states where it's just so blissful. Your body is not distracting you, right? There's no pain anywhere. In fact, for me, I've had experiences where I just feel like my body is way up there and I'm just in this space. And it's like up there, out there, it's like inner space. Again, kingdom of heaven within, and there's this deep peace in there. Why go out, right? Well, because you got to go to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
What time is it? So it's the habit of meditation that really brings the benefit. So don't expect to get somewhere. Just set your timer if you need one for 20 minutes. Or if you're doing a guided meditation, a lot of them are 20 to 30 minutes. By the time it's done, you're done. Right? Make the habit out of it, and you'll start waking up into realizing these truths that are self-evident. They're called living truths. Right? The soul is a living truth. The peace and the love and the joy associated with it is a living truth, meaning it's already there. Are you aware of it? Right? Or are you off on the surface somewhere believing you're separate from it? And in that belief and in that identity, wanting it. Right? The identity can't get there because you're already there. What you can do is see the identity and let go of the identity.
Yeah.
So meditation gives us that opportunity.
Jeez. Well, I love that. Well, and you put some good perspective to it, because I used to have, to be honest, I haven't meditated consistently in a while, but when I was doing it, I did feel that peace. And as I've been frustrated recently because I don't think I've made that time or space to do it effectively. Like, it's been always very rushed. I've got to go to work and it's like 5-10 minutes away.
Right.
And I don't wake up early enough to do it. And so that gives some good tips for that. And I'm sure for anyone who's watching, I think we can all relate to this in some way or another, whether we've tried it or not. But well, good. Well, that honestly was so perfect, Gil. Thank you so much for giving us some context to it, giving us some background to it, and helping us understand meditation a little more.
Yeah, you're welcome. And for those of you that might be watching, if I've messed up a few bits and pieces. Again, I'm not the expert on this. I'm passionate about it. I love the subject. So with all due respect to your guru and everybody's guru out there, this is for those that don't know, as an introduction, that, you know, what's possible, what can happen in there. And yeah, thanks for paying attention. And if you're interested in more, come into our achievetoday.com and fill out that application for a free consultation.
Yeah.
And we'll have a great consultation with you. We'll contrast where you're at now with where you want to be. And if we can see that we can help you get there a lot faster, obviously we want to work with you. And if we can't, then, you know, we can at least give you some good tips.
For sure. Well, thank you, Gail.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you found value and you would like to hear more of what these coaches are saying each and every week, please subscribe to our channel so that you can continue to get these episodes. We hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.